Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Steak Podcast. It has been a while since we've had one of these, but not to dismay, we have a very special guest today, Dr. Chiente. I'm actually sorry, just Chiente. And she is the CEO and co founder of AlexGo. AlexGo is a leading DeFi platform, all in one go to DeFi platform built on stacks. They have recently launched about 5 months ago, maybe a couple months ago, and recently did an IDO, their first IDO yesterday or last week. And so, without further ado, Tiende, welcome to Steak
Hello.
Podcast.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. We meant to do this a while ago while we were doing the testnet, right? And I'm sorry for the delay. But I'm really happy to be here today.
No, I'm very excited to have you. I'm actually happier that we've done it post launch, post mainnet, post the first IDO, because there's so much to talk about, and I know so many people have many questions, and hopefully we'll be able to get some new alpha out of you and learn what's next for Alex. And I don't want to hammer on your background. There's been a lot of interviews you've done, but just for anyone who is not ever listened to one of your interviews, can you tell us a little bit about your background before starting Alex?
Sure. So my Wi-Fi today is not great. It's very funny because I'm in New York City. Should be the, technology-wise should be the, advanced place. So I apologize if there's any quality issue. Um, I was born in Taiwan. My parents came from mainland China. We moved to Vienna, Austria when I was at high school. So I went to University of Vienna and Technical University of Vienna for my undergrad and my PhD. And after that, I became a tenure track professor at my university, which is University of Vienna. And in between, I was a visiting professor at Duke, at the econ department. I was teaching and conducting research, particularly in financial econometrics. After that, I think that was about 1998, I joined Wall Street. That was the boom of the quant or derivatives. Let's put it this way, in finance. So I built up quant businesses at Credit Suisse and later Morgan Stanley. So I was a managing director there and leading a team of PhDs coming up with a, you know, purely rule-based algorithmic systematic investment strategies for institutional investors such as pension fund, hedge fund, corporate, etc., etc. So that was what my last life. And then after pandemic, when the pandemic started, I started talking to my co-founder, wonderful co-founder. I hope one day she will come to your show also. Rachel, her background is also Wall Street and math. We started talking about, what we could do to really build a much more efficient financial services. And she was the one who really brought the blockchain, Bitcoin to my life. So I got bitten the bug really through Rachel. And so her son's name is Alex. And one day we were thinking about how we should name our project. And then just at 3 o'clock in the morning, I text her. I say, let's just call it Alex. And Alex stands for Automated Liquidity Exchange. Obviously, she loved it. So that was really the beginning of our project. And you have been a very good friend of ours, have been following our journey. I mean, crypto is 24/7. It's only really a few months, but I feel like it has been a lifelong. So we started, we were basically investigating, doing research on which chain we want to launch our project, which will be, a suite of financial services. We look at Ethereum, obviously, Avalanche, and other relatively new chains that I'm sure your viewers are very familiar with. Then we, through a very good friend of mine, we met Munib, and then he started talking about stacks and his, the way he set up stack, not he, but the community set up stacks, really completely decentralized network, true to Bitcoin and settled on Bitcoin. And we were really, really inspired, I would say. I remember when he told us, you know, don't be evil is not good enough. You have to be, can't be evil, right? Because if somehow you have a super node and somebody running this node, centralized node that have all your data, somehow, in a human history, you just know it's cyclical. You just have that, that tendency for this centralized person or entity to be evil. So we were really, I would say, inspired by Munib's vision. So we have decided together with our CTO Chang that we will build a financial services, a DeFi on Stack, right, for Bitcoin. Now, when we started, that was last year. That was about May when we met Munib. Stacks 2.0 just rolled out. Stack 2.0 rolled out beginning of last year. So as you can imagine, is a new language, new chain. There are lots of bits and pieces are not there. Originally, our idea was to do, systematic investment, investment strategies through DeFi. Obviously, you come to a young chain, there's nothing. We most likely, actually, we are together with Acadico, are the first DeFi. So there are lots of primitives we have to build, right? Because it's not there yet. So we really revamp our business plan, and we joined a fantastic accelerator program. So if your audience and viewers here who have a good idea, have the vision, want to build something on Stack, I highly encourage you to check out this accelerator program. The people there are just amazing, right? They are your team. They want you to succeed. So cutting story short, we joined the accelerator program in May last year, end of May last year. We started testnet launch October, and that's when you and I started talking, I think around October. And we only mainnet launched 10 weeks ago. Yeah. That was 10 weeks ago. But through testnet, mainnet, I'm just so, touched, because Stacks is you know this because you have been in the community for long. It's a fantastic community. So from the testnet, which is October 10th, to mainnet, which is January 18th, to now, we started with a Twitter follower of 2, just Rachel and myself, to now over 25,000 Twitter followers. On Discord, we call Discord our home, the community's home, is our home base. We started, again, 3 of us, Chang, our CTO, myself, and Rachel. 2, as of today, is close to 17,000 members.
Wow.
Alexians. And then you start thinking about, wow, this is really Web3. We never asked a marketing agency to help us, to amplify us. It's all organic grown from Stacks community. Now I think we have expanded beyond the Stacks community. We bring more and more users into the Stacks community. All organic, all community based. So it's very intense, but very, very rewarding journey up to today. So again, mainnet launch only 10 weeks.
Yeah, that is some, like you said, tremendous growth. And one metric that you hadn't mentioned, and I'm interested to hear just your thoughts about the amount of liquidity that Alex has been able to attract just within 10 weeks. Correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I've seen, it looks like about 40 million had been locked in liquidity just in farming. And I wasn't able to see any numbers in terms of staking, but maybe you can share some insights in terms of, in terms of that.
Sure. Yeah, I'm so happy you mentioned that there's no big well coming. It's very organic grow. All Stacks community, Alex community, we have now close to 40 million within 9 to 10 weeks. Staking was interesting, and you could see it on our app. There's a small button on the left side on our app. It's called Analytics. You can see all the data there because it's
Ah,
blockchain. Everything is transparent. That's why we love it as the X quant, right? So more than 72% of the stakers, they choose to stake the longest cycle, which I think is around 32 cycle. That's about, I would say, approximately like 116 days. So most people, they come, they stake Alex, they stay here, they are patient with us, and they stay for very, very long. And I think that says more about the 40 million, right? Because that says that 72% of your token holders, they believe in you, they are patient with you, they know you are building something for the long term, and they are happy to lock their their capital with you in your protocol for more than 116 days. So we are very, very grateful for that.
well, yeah, that's just a great way to actually, kind of shift and highlight what is important, which is the commitment of the community. And that is actually a very powerful. And I had within the first week locked my Alex for 32 weeks and was like, all right, let's do this. I'm in it for the long haul. So, um, uh, can you now? I'm sure there's some people who, obviously, most of my viewers are very familiar with DeFi. But if someone came to you and they'd never heard about Alex, never really didn't really understand DeFi, maybe they'd heard of Bitcoin and Ethereum, but they asked you, what is Alex? What would you say?
Right. So Alex is a financial infrastructure for Bitcoin and built on stacks. Okay, so let's decompose this sentence into three parts, right? What is financial infrastructure? What is finance, right? So there are three pillars of a financial infrastructure from my point of view. And if you read other articles and books, it might explain differently. But to me, this is most clear in my head is three pillars composed of number one, marketplace. Marketplace can be primary marketplace, secondary marketplace. What is a primary marketplace? IPO. Now, on Alex, which is a decentralized exchange, is IDO. So initial DEX offering. This is primary market. What does it means is that if you have a project, you want to seek funding as well as achieve decentralization very fast, right? You would launch your tokens through Alex Launchpad. So that's a marketplace. The secondary marketplace is what most people are familiar with, is a decentralized exchange, DEX, like Uniswap, AMM type of DEX. So that's, I would say, the first pillar of financial infrastructure is you need marketplace for people to exchange. The second pillar is about the financial instrument that are offered so that your financial needs are met. For example, in the traditional finance, you have students who need student loan. You have mortgages for buying houses. You have CDs because if you want to deposit your money for long term, you expect to get a longer interest rate, right? So these are all financial instruments. So what Alex has or is going to have are, for example, that other people don't have is a fixed rate lend and borrow. So for us, this is very important because fixed rate lend and borrow take away certain variability and uncertainty of your life. So if you have one Bitcoin, you can deposit, for 3 months, get a very, very high yield. And other people, they need to borrow Bitcoin for various reasons. They can borrow that with a fixed rate in fixed term. So that is instrument, that financial instrument that we need to offer to people for different needs of their lives. Now, most importantly, I think the third pillar that usually is not that well discussed or understood is called leverage. Right? So, for example, if I am extreme risk averse and Bitcoin stacks and other tokens are very, very volatile, what I want is I want to go to a place where I say, okay, I can buy hedging, right? I can buy protection hedging, but I'm willing to pay a little bit in order to cover my downside. Now, there are people like you, for example, you want to leverage, you want to, buy those leverage in order to invest using the leverage instead of, for example, you need zero 0.1 Bitcoin, you can actually, buy the leverage and not paying upfront that much in order to bet a bigger amount of what you have. That's why we call it buy leverage. Why is leverage so important? Because if we don't have leverage, the financial growth is very linear. So, number one, my mom, if she put her cash under her pillow, that cash, that money is helping nobody, right? If she put that in the bank and the bank can use it to lend it to somebody else in a leverage way, we call it a multiplier, right? So for financial world, in order to grow, non-linearly faster, you do need the leverage. So coming back to these three pillars: marketplace, financial instrument, leverage. These are the three main components of a well-functioning financial world. And Alex is this. Alex is all of this. Alex is, I would say, the road and highways of the Stacks ecosystem because it's a bank for everybody. So that's what we mean that Alex is a DeFi, because it's a decentralized finance. The protocol itself doesn't belong to anybody, right? Now, second thing is about, I think more importantly, and you are very well versed in this, is about the Bitcoin. Why do we decide to build a DeFi for Bitcoin? Originally, we use on Bitcoin, but Munib like us to be more precise because nobody can change, the script of a Bitcoin. So what it means is that for us, Bitcoin is the most decentralized network ever created in humankind, right? Nobody controls Bitcoin. It's completely permissionless and decentralized. So we want to build a DeFi for Bitcoin. But because Bitcoin, you cannot write smart contract in it, so why Stack is so powerful, Stacks 2.0 is so powerful, is a smart contract for Bitcoin, right? Because of proof of transfer, etc., etc. So it's really the smart contract for Bitcoin, and Alex uses this smart contract. Alex is written using this smart contract. So that's why we say we are a DeFi, so we are a financial infrastructure for Bitcoin, because we believe Bitcoin is the layer of money, the best store of value, but we need a smart contract for that. That's why we use a stacked smart contract to write Alex, the protocol.
Yes, no, thank you. I really like that distinction for Bitcoin. It makes a lot of sense. Um, can you give us a sense of how difficult it is to build something like this, just in terms of the intellectual power, the game theory, the technical know-how, and then also, using Clarity, this sort of relatively new smart contracting language. Sorry. Uh,
Contract.
just give us a
No
sense
worry.
of sort of what it took to build something like this.
Okay, sure. But again, I want to give a shout out to all the DeFi's out there on Ethereum, on other chain, Alva, etc., because the innovation started there, right, on Ethereum of DeFi. Bitcoin DeFi started with us, with Arcadico and a few others on other chain, side chain. So big shout out to like Uniswap, Aave, Compound, DYDX. This innovation come from there. So coming back to this excellent question, how difficult it is. Alex differentiate itself from other DeFi protocol is that we are financial quants. So we know the financial engineering part very, very well. Okay. So we came in not as a crypto insider. We never wrote any smart contract, but again, we wrote in Python, in C++, etc. So we are very well versed in programming as a developer. But Clarity definitely was new language to us. But first thing we had was a group of quants, myself, two quants who used to work with me, and then Chang, our CTO himself, is also a quant, and Rachel as well. So we started look at, okay, what is great that has been built in DeFi space, we take it. What hasn't been done well, we improve it using our financial quants know-how. For example, I'm sure you have heard that I started talking about it in a very early on, the collateral rebalancing, which we can talk about that a little bit later. That hasn't existed anywhere. But for example, the AMM Uniswap, fantastic innovation, right? We want to use it, right, as a DEX kind of innovation. So that is you would say that is learned from these fantastic DeFi protocols. And on top of that, we improve using our financial quant technology. So that's on that part. Now, Clarity is a language, interestingly, our CTO Chang loves it, right? He fell in love with the Clarity. And he has a PhD in computer science. I have a master in computer science. So he programmed much better than me. What he said is the following. He said, Clarity in the very beginning is hard to learn, but once you get it, you get a hang of it, I'm just quoting him, you will not go to other languages. It's so beautiful, right? It's lips-based, but what's beautiful about it is that, it's written almost like a human language, but even after you compile it in a human readable language. So if you look at, for example, Solidity, after you compile, it becomes a machine language. Whereas Clarity, I'm sure you have seen this Explorer, right? It
Yes.
compiles into a human readable language. And itself for DeFi, for finance, is very, very important, because if, just in case something happened, right, you can always go back to check what has went right, what has went wrong, right? So it's very, very user-friendly, I would say. So that's number one. Our CTO completely fell in love with Clarity because of its transparency. Let's put it this way. Yeah, I would say transparency and security. Transparency and security are highly correlated. So that's number one. Number two is that we have a really great and supportive group of people. For example, shout out to Marvin Jensen, who is a Clarity University lead. He helped us a lot in the very beginning to make sure that our conceptually the design is good, is robust, smart contract wise, and slowly but surely, because of Alex, we managed to attract really good, talented, hardworking smart contract developers. So that's how it went about. So I would say it's an organic growth. Started with Chang learn himself, Clarity. Marvin came to help us, and then we managed to attract smart contract developers that now are the core team of Alex.
Yeah, I want to just kind of follow up on, one thing you had just mentioned, which is y'all as a team came from, traditional finance and didn't really come from, the Ethereum, Web3, sort of crypto boom. And that whenever I first learned of it was extremely compelling to me, simply because, we're talking about decentralized finance, and I you would expect that people who came from the traditional finance world would obviously know the ins and outs better than most. And so to that end, what were some of the issues that you all identified within the traditional finance space that you understood, sort of blockchain technology as being able to solve? And maybe if you can kind of also include in that answer, a discussion a little bit more, which you've already talked about some of, sort of like why Bitcoin as that base primitive.
Yeah, excellent question. I was in traditional finance for more than 2 decades. when I joined, I think 1 week later, Russia defaulted. It's so deja vu because Russia is defaulting most of its bonds, obviously. Russia defaulted long-term capital in the LTCM, also not defaulted, but because they were taking very, very cheap leverage from all the banks, and then a lot of their. I'm just going to put out jargon there. If you have viewers who are interested, definitely DM me. They basically they said they are relative value bet, so something like co-integrated together, so you never can go wrong, right? But it went completely wrong. So they also went under. So that was the 1 week after I joined. That was the first financial crisis that I personally experienced. Then it was a lot afterwards, right? 2008, the big financial crisis. 2013, 12, 13, you have European crisis, and leading up to this is not a financial crisis, but it is a crisis such as the pandemic. Now, every time you have something like this, what I have experienced sitting on the trading floor is that the banks, this business model of banks, become more and more inefficient because they just introduce more and more regulation, right? And you have more and more middle office, back office, risk management, etc., etc. So it's almost like instead of solving the problem from the fundamental, you just do the patching work, and you patch more and more and more. It becomes uglier and uglier. So really, what's went wrong is that you have all these political entity, central banks try to meet certain quite a short-term target, plus bank itself is century old kind of model, business model, right? Trying to offer financial services, but setting up all the boundaries, all the obstacles that you have all this border issue, you have all this middleman issue. At the end, it turned out to be so inefficient. I think 2 days ago there was an investor asking me why the banks they don't think about just knock down everything and rebuild everything on blockchain, right? But from a business point of view, you understand it's almost impossible. There's no bank is going to say, okay, I'm going to invest in $4 billion, try to revamp everything. So it's almost there's no way out for this old business model. Now, why Bitcoin? And I'm talking about the blockchain technology, right? Not this currency that up and down people like to, tweet about trading, etc. I'm just talking about the blockchain technology. It is the most decentralized network. What it means is that you don't have this one super node, or let's not mention a name like other chain that you have those super nodes holding your data and your activities, right, in their control. So, and then as I mentioned, politically, and if you look historically, it's very cyclical that if you give a centralized authority such power, almost always the abuse will follow, right? So what do? You have Bitcoin, a blockchain technology, most beautiful layer of money, deflationary, doesn't belong to anybody, completely trustless. You can use that as a layer of money and start building all the financial infrastructure on top. So that's our thought. Ethereum, fantastic innovation, but itself, I would say, is it's a self-contained economy, right? Ethereum, you have all this DeFi, if all this $200 billion or more in this DeFi world in Ethereum, but itself is a self-contained economy. Very interesting, very exciting to watch. But if you want to look at the $1 trillion of traditional finance that we have this Bitcoin technology, this blockchain technology, to help to make it more efficient, that's almost a no-brainer. You want to build DeFi there, right? So I would say, if you look at Ethereum, again, it's a self-sustained economy. Really, at the end, not much to do with traditional finance. And then you have traditional finance here, very inefficient, but you can offer much more efficient services to the TradFi, which is much, much bigger, right? And you can offer really efficient financial services. Then for us is that this is where we want to be. Alex want to be the DeFi for Bitcoin, for traditional finance. And I always like to say is that hopefully down the road, when we become much, scalable, we grow with stacks and with other chains together, it won't be TradFi, CFi, DeFi. It will be just one fi. Whoever offer the most efficient, most user-friendly. Oh, by the way, user-friendliness, we all have to do the work together. Exactly, shout out to you. What you are doing today is really educational material, right? We want user to be educated, but we also want, from the dev point of view, we want to make an app that is very user-friendly. At the moment, you have to go to centralized exchange, get something, get a wallet, and then get a hero, and then it's not very user-friendly yet, and we all have to do our work, our part in the user-friendliness, and at the end leads to financial inclusion. So this is a very long answer to your question, excellent question, is why Bitcoin? I would say because we want to serve the bigger good, which is financial inclusion, not just crypto well-versed, Ethereum work. We want to serve the mainstream, the TradFi. We want people who don't have a bank account, can't have a wallet, who couldn't IPO, can IDO, etc., etc. So that's why we chose Bitcoin, we chose stacks. But we are still at the very, very beginning. You know Alex app well. We have IPO, IDO, we have debt, we have a farm, but there are more and more functionality coming in order really to achieve our vision, which is financial inclusion.
Yes, I want to definitely give a shout out to the usability of Alex. I've been trying so many DeFi protocols over the last years, and truthfully, one of the most intuitive experiences. And maybe that's just because I've learned from those other less user friendly experiences. But yeah, I must say the UI UX experience is the highest quality in the space. And so shout out to your team. I want to definitely.
Oh, thank you.
I want to be able to get into what Alex holds in the future. But before I do, I've been I not a huge technical know-how type of guy. I'm just kind of one of those people who fell into this crypto space and really have learned just by using. And I know that, sort of when I fell in love with Bitcoin, it was for some of these properties that it has, such as censorship resistance, permissionlessness, ownership. And because I don't have that technical know-how, maybe you can just answer for me and the audience. Does Alex inherit those same properties of censorship resistance, permissionlessness? Yeah.
Yes, but there's something that I will put in a footnote later. Okay, so Alex uses Clarity, the smart contract. So Alex is settled on Stack blockchain, right? Stack blockchain, because of the proof of transfer, basically has this tethered relationship with Bitcoin. And Stack is completely decentralized, right? Nobody owns Stack, right? So that is definitely yes, because Alex uses stacks, settled on stacks, that blockchain. Now, but not everything is on-chain. Why? Because we are still growing with Stack. There are certain, let's say, scalability issues, a speed issue that your viewers, I'm sure, have experience with Stacks, that somehow in the interim, we have to do it this way. Very simple example is our launchpad, the IDO, right? The first IDO, you remember, it was Alex token IDO. It was so painful. I don't know if you remember.
No,
I,
actually, my
I,
first IDO
you,
experience was Bitcoin monkeys, and it was awesome.
oh, you are very lucky. It's awesome, right?
Yes.
It's going to be more awesome because in a few hours, the IDO will basically end, and you will see the lottery process is so smooth and so fast. Now, originally the way we did the IDO with Alex is everything on chain, right? Even the lottery drawing was on chain. We completely jammed Stacks network. People were complaining so much that my heart was really aching for them, with them, because they locked up their Stacks token in order to participate in IDO. So because of the scalability of Stacks blockchain itself, but the devs are working, lots of different groups are working to improve the scalability issues. The second idea, which is the one you are participating, we have part of it is off-chain. Okay, so that's not on-chain. Why? Because it's just much faster. But we have a way, and for sure, that the people can verify the drawing, the fairness and transparency of the drawing in the ATOC way. So because the Stacks blockchain can get slow if there are a lot of transactions on it, so we take part of it off chain in the lottery drawing process. So lottery drawing itself is going to be off chain, but you can always verify afterwards how come these winners got this ticket, etc., etc. So that we have to do it off chain, right? But it's very reliable. So not everything is on chain. Now later down the road, there will be also part will be off chain, and that's almost necessity. And for example, the order book DEX, in the traditional finance, in other chain like Almas, you can put like limit order, etc., etc., right? What is important there is that at any point in time, you can take lots of orders and you have to match them, and then you settle them. Now, the bulk that is going to match is going to be off chain. That's why we call it order book DEX, because it's the order book, but the main settlement will be still on Stacks. So that's on chain. So that's why when you talk about off chain, is it completely decentralized? Well, is Alex running it, the protocol running it, although you can verify it, but it's not completely on the decentralized chain. So that I have to make it very clear. I would say it's almost a best compromise we can do, right? Users want the security, the transparency, but also the speed. So what we try to do is to be as pragmatic as we can, but as transparent as we can. So part of it will be off-chain, but all the main settlement is on-chain. Is that fair?
Yeah, no, that was, life's about trade-offs, and we're still very early on in this tech, and I, and I'm sure you feel the same, believe in just the intellectual power of the people to make this thing work and scale long term. I want to now kind of focus on the future of Alex, where things are going, maybe some of the partnerships and interactions with other DeFi protocols. My first question in this area is, why did you all decide to use a lottery system for the launch pad? There was probably a various different methods you guys could have used, to launch future projects, but why choose the lottery method?
Right. Now the lottery in the sense of lottery, it just means fair drawing, right? You have very, very strict random number generation process in order to allocate the token, right? So in that sense, it's a lottery. Why did we decide to do that? Because we thought that it's the first time that Stacks community has something like this, and we want to energize the community and get people to participate, right? You could do also Dutch auction, for example, I think I tweeted a few days ago, there are pro and con of each, just like life, right? You always have pro and con of each. We like decentralization. For us, again, the reason why we build on stacks for Bitcoin is because of the decentralization part of it. If it's lottery, it doesn't matter. You have a knowledge of DeFi. My mom doesn't, but doesn't matter what. You both participate in this lottery process. You just have to submit your lottery ticket for validation, right? For Dutch auction, for example, you need to have certain knowledge of that project, and in order to first put on some bet so that your probability of winning is higher, right? So there are pro and con. We like decentralization. That's why we think that the lottery type of ideal is much more interesting, because it doesn't matter your size of your wallet, it doesn't matter your pre-knowledge of a DeFi or particular project, NFT project, that everybody have a fair chance. We are also developing the Dutch auction, because there will be some project who want to IDO on Alex. They want to have Dutch auction, right? So we have that as well, and it's going to roll out later. So that's number one to your question. And the second question you have, which is a much bigger question, is what's the future of Alex? What are you guys rolling out, right? So imminently, we are obviously working with the whole ecosystem. We like to say that everybody have to hold hand tight and help each other so that we can all grow exponentially. So we work very closely with the NFT projects, with other DeFi projects, try to help each other. I'm sure you heard about this NFT market, Jamil and his fantastic team. They are the first one use our APY to come up, using different tokens in order to buy and sell NFT. So you can use Stack, you can use Red BTC, you can even use Alex, right, to buy and sell the NFT. And that's our swap functionality. We are also working with another big DeFi project. I'm not naming a name because the community of theirs have to vote first. But we are working on something really exciting, which is called dual yield, right? So if you be a liquidity provider, you can earn both Alex token as well as this project's token. But I'm not going to say much because tomorrow you will know more.
Okay.
And so on and so on. So we are working with all these projects together, try to help each other. The midterm goal, which are my co-founder, my CTO, and the team working very, very hard on, is there's a thing called Auto Alex. I'm sure you complain as well that every time you have to go to harvest after one cycle is done, right? So we are going to roll out something in early April, called Auto Alex. So you don't need to click every time when cycle is over. It will be automatic. And that's actually has a profound impact, because then, which means that we will design something that call Auto Alex that later you can use as collateral until to borrow. So that would be very, very interesting. Now down the road, we are really looking to scale up. So testnet, subnet, which is now called Hyperchain. That's the scalability solution that Stacks is going to offer, and we're very excited about that. So we're going to build most of our functionality on the Hyperchain. So once the Hyperchain is there, you can imagine that Alex basically has its own chain, right? And then we have all the ecosystem around Alex can build upon. But still, we are still settled on Stacks for Bitcoin. So that will never change. But from there, the growth will be exponential, because that also means that Stack 2.1 will be out, the cross-chain bridges will be ready, we will have a wallet which is chain agnostic. At the moment, we have already wrapped Bitcoin. So for Bitcoin holders, if they're okay with that, they can get the Bitcoin wrap and come to use Alex or any Stacks protocol. Very soon we will have wrap USD. So anybody who has USDC, again, if you're okay with that, wrap into USD, and then you can use Alex and other protocol. But very, very soon, because of the Hyperchain, because of the Stack 2.1, all the cross bridges, we're going to be multi-chain. And we're going to be able to onboard Bitcoin, onboard any stable coins, and the gate is open, right? So step by step, steady, 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 grow with stacks, grow with the other ecosystem. We hope that Bitcoin DeFi, will be the thing that compete with TradFi.
Well, and more importantly, much people much smarter than me all believe that is what is going to take place, and as must yourself and your team, because you guys have put, obviously, your time and resources and money where your mouth is, if you will. What have I not asked that you think that you want the community to hear? What things? What would you have expected me to have asked that I maybe didn't?
I think you did a fantastic job. I mean, it's already 48 minutes past. I feel we have only talked 5 minutes. So that means it's really the conversation really is to me is really, really exciting. I want to come back, particularly for people who are still, you know, I would say critical or cautious about DeFi or stacks or even Bitcoin, is the following. Um, Finance is about your money, right? It should be actually, boring, right? DeFi is risky, but we do our best to make DeFi secure, transparent. So that's what Alex is here for. We don't have NFT. We don't do all this crazy campaign. I don't have a NFT avatar. Neither Rachel, right? Chang every now and then, he likes to use his avatar, but we are real people behind, right? We are held accountable because this is finance. Doesn't matter it's DeFi or TradFi or CFi. This is finance. It's people's money. That's number one. So we are very, very, very careful about that. You might see that, oh, why Alex doesn't do NFT, why Alex doesn't do that, because we want to be steady and stable and secure for you. So that's number one. But DeFi is risky, right? So do your homework before you put lots of money on, and never ever you will see or receive any direct message from me or our team asking you to post anything. So be very careful about that. So that's number one. Number two is that, just like you said before, if you are new to DeFi, the best way is just to play, just to use a little bit, right? You will see it's not that scary. Especially Alex is, thanks to Rachel, Oscar, and all this fantastic UI UX team, it's like a cream. So try to use it. But number three, I think really most important, and always get into my skin, is that when you use Alex, you are already Web3, right? It's your data, it's your identity. Nobody can shut you down. Nobody can say, like a CFI say, oh, you cannot withdraw your Alex or your stacks. No, we are already in Web3. And that always gets me. When you later open your ideal ticket about Bitcoin, monkeys, banana, it is Web3. Nobody is between us. We don't have centralized authority in between. Right? It's borderless, it's permissionless. We trust in code. So that's what I want to say. And it always gets me, I always have goosebumps when I say that. It's really touching.
No, and I'm definitely going to end this on that, because I think that is, Web3 is here, and that is a powerful, powerful proposition. Uh, Chiende, thank you so much for taking the time to come and share with my community and the AlexGo community. And hopefully, we will have Rachel sometime in the future come on Staked Podcast. That would be very awesome. So if you could put me in contact with her, I'd love to set that up. Yeah, everyone who's out there, make sure you like, share, subscribe, and all of the Alex Go information is in the description, the website, the Discord, the Twitter. So jump in there, join the community, and I also have some tutorial videos. Learn how to use the IDO, and I'll have more tutorial videos coming very soon. So we want to just say thank you, Chiende, and thank you to the entire AlexGo team.
Thank you so much for having me here.
All right, thank you. Take care, and we'll talk very soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.